Nuggets news with Craig Cole. Trigger warning, they're talking about some pretty contentious stuff. And Craig Cole isn't a fringe fruitcake. He actually has the receipts to back up everything he says. I've been watching this guy for quite a while. Long enough to know that he saw through Bosie and they had a pretty big argument, and I think it was like, yeah, Bosie will only mouth off at him on here, but I don't reckon he'd front him. I actually don't think he'd fare too well. So I think Craig Cole was in the same frame of mind as me, right? Well, there's some questions that need to be answered, and you're not answering them, and you reckon you know the answers. Where's the money from Epic Park, mate? If you want to talk about people being honest, well, you know where they are, but you won't tell anyone, and you reckon they had nothing to do with it. That sounds pretty guilty to me. You'll tell people bits and pieces, but you won't tell them who did it. So, anyway, he reckons he knows. So tell us, you drunk. Craig Cole and Nuggets News, talking about pedophilia.
Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Today we've got a special guest, and that is Craig Cole from Leave Our Kids Alone and Team Warrior Spirit. He's also organising a walk for the children next Sunday, and he's been doing plenty of work into child abuse, satanic ritual abuse, how this is all going on through our schools and institutions in Australia. So great stuff, mate, and welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Alex, and thanks for the work that you're doing as well, mate, on your end, exposing all this for the last couple of years. And, it's a situation, someone mentioned to me the other day, it's like, oh, Craig, I can't believe how much more child abuse there is now. It's like, no, it's always been there. It's just being reported more often now. Yeah. So, and we see nearly every day an instance of child abuse being reported in the fake news media or the mainstream media, which is, you can't hold the floodgates back. So, the satanic ritual abuse, the child abuse, the systemic child abuse in the system, the state care system, the daycare system, and even the schooling system as well. And let's not forget the family court system as well. So, when you look at and as we know, and a lot of people watching will know, the systemic pedophilia in this country runs deep from the top. When you got Bill Heffernan in the Senate Estimates Committee hearing in 2015 speaking about the suppressed documents from the Wood Royal Commission. You got the suppressed names from the Mulligan Report, over 80 names apparently. We've got a real problem in this country that finally people are starting to realise how grave it is. And just a word of caution, if I could, from the top. There'll be things that I'm mentioning here that might be triggering to people, so apologies for that. But we cannot ignore the elephant in the room on this issue any longer. All cards need to be laid on the table, and I completely acknowledge that there will be survivors of child abuse watching this that may get triggered. Apologies for that. But you've got a lot of voices now speaking up, and we've got an opportunity here now that we're not going to get again to really push this home and bring this to light and finish this once and for all, for our children now, for our future children, for your future grandchildren, but also for justice for the people, the survivors who's had this perpetrated on them. Yeah. And now you're seeing this in the school system. So,
just quickly, mate, that's important what you said there. I was hanging out with a counsellor friend yesterday, and she said she's had 7 emergency, appointments that from people that she works with, victims of all this stuff that have been triggered. But she also was saying that it's kind of, they know that this is necessary and they want to put it into it. So this is all part of that kind of healing process that we absolutely need to be aware of, as well as all this stuff comes out. But yeah, do you want to dig into, how you got into this and how widespread this is in the schools and everything you've learned that the media have kept covered up?
Yeah, so I'm a youth worker for 20 years, Alex. That's what I've done in the community. And I was in the education system for 15 years as well too, on an education department contract here in Victoria under education support. So I know the system well, and I know how broken it is. And there are a lot of things when in my time in the education system that really raised my eyebrows and what wasn't right. Because I did a lot of work with DHS clients, resi units as well, and there were some things going on in there. I mean, you talk about, gee whiz, there's a group of resi units, and SBS reported on this in 2014. There was a group of resi units in Dandenong, and they were the subject of a rape gang who would... and what the story was, and I had this validated from someone that used to work in the DHS as well too, rang me up one day.
Before he goes on, now, I'm going to say this, don't go running after Muslims over this shit. Just don't. Don't do it. There are so many decent, good, honest, innocent Muslims that are caught up in this because of the stereotype and the vitriol and the fucking constant pointing the finger everywhere. Muslim, 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 Muslim. That's coming from the Jews. That's coming from, let's make everyone else out to be monsters because we want to be the good guys in Australia. That's all that is. And look what's going on in our parliaments and shit. Just use your discernment. No, don't jump to conclusions because there's too much of that. I'm going to tell you, there's probably most likely African rape gangs. And when I say African rape gangs, there's 11 different languages in Africa and dozens of tribes, different tribes that don't get along. And they've had a hell of a go, and ever since apartheid, between South Africa and Africa proper, like, things were bad. I remember the days of apartheid. I was young, but I remember it. It still is, really. Europe annexed South Africa and took it. And that created a lot of problems once the Africans realised why. They thought the Europeans were there to help them. They were there to help themselves to all their minerals and resources. It's going to be going on here shortly. We all need to be just Australians. For one another, for the country, you know what I'm saying? If you talk to a traditional proper Muslim, like who's practicing Islam, they call these, the ones that are, they're not really, they're called Western converts. They call them Western converts, and they're like, they come back here, we got to reprogram these people, because they've been programmed, they've been brainwashed, messed with, they've been westernised and demoralised. They'll tell you that straight up. So, I just want to put that out there. You know, I'm saying that from a Christian point of view. I know, right? Just put your vitriol away. Be rational.
Craig is put on the money on this. What they would do is now, you know, this is going to sound far-fetched to a lot of people because a lot of people work in DHS. Now, the caseworkers at the bottom level, they're so inundated with work and clients, and you've got about 20 or 30 clients on their caseload. They wouldn't know what's going on above them. I mean, they would have seen things that have raised their eyebrows, and they would have asked questions. They would have got told with, oh, that's above your pay grade, don't worry about it. The group of units down there were systematically infiltrated with managers dropped in there that would, any teenage girls in those units would be drugged, then driven to secure locations where groups of men would rape them, and then driven back to the resi units. And some of those girls just disappeared for good, never to be seen again. Now, like I said, the SBS did report on this in 2014, and there was a police investigation, but what a surprise, Alex, it went no further, and nothing was ever heard about it. I know you're surprised by this, and not really, I was just being sarcastic, but this is what we're dealing with, mate. You know, that's just one example, and I could stand here for the next 5 hours quoting examples, but, you know, that's what you're dealing with. And with all due love and respect to people that do work in these organisations that say, oh, well, I work for the DHS and I would know if that went on. No, with all love and respect, that's your ego talking. And if anyone says they know exactly what's going on in these big organisations, you don't. Because you're told things, that's above your pay grade level and et cetera, et cetera. So, then you look at the school system, so one example being, Alex, is the Safe Schools policy. Now, the Safe Schools policy was written by an organisation called ARCSIS, that's the Australian Research Centre in Sex, Health and Society. They are out of La Trobe University in Melbourne, make note of that name. And once again, I'm not suggesting that all lecturers and people that attend La Trobe University in Melbourne are pedophiles, but they've got a really nasty pedophile element to that organisation and that campus. Gary Dowsett was the co-founder of ARCSIS. Gary Dowsett is a pedophiles advocate, and I'm led to believe on good authority has had charges for child abuse laid against him that were all swept under the carpet as well too. Gary Dowsett wrote a journal in the 80s for a gay information magazine. Now, once again, I'll preface this by saying that once you're an adult, you can make whatever lifestyle choices you like, so long as you're not impinging on the rights of other people. Gary Dowsett wrote a journal an article in a journal, a gay magazine journal, and some of the points he mentioned were. I'll mention a couple and I'll read one of the paragraphs. We have three legal social questions to win. The first one was the rights for gay men and lesbians. The second two are really disturbing. The legal right of pedophiles and their young lovers. Finally, the sexual rights of children as a whole. The sexual rights of children as a whole. This is a person who wrote the content for Safe Schools. Now, the Education Department will say, no, that's a lie, because in 2016 this was exposed by a number of people. Senator Williams, who was a New South Wales senator at the time, spoke about this in New South Wales Parliament, and also George Christensen, the federal MP, spoke about it in Parliament as well, so under parliamentary privilege, and mentioned those points. The Education Department came out afterwards here in Victoria and said, oh no, Gary Dowsett didn't write it. Well, that's a lie. He peer-reviewed all of it and wrote it in as well. So if you're peer-reviewing something, Alex, it's as good as writing it yourself, mate. So now, this disturbing thing is you've got a pedophile that's written the content that your children are learning from now. Now, when there was a big commotion over this in 2016, 2017, they changed the name of Safe Schools to Respectful Relationships. All they did is rebrand it and take out the overtly inappropriate, it's all inappropriate, but the blatant overt content. The early days in Safe Schools, there was caricatures of boys giving other young boys oral sex.
I remember seeing those images floating around,
it's there's a lot of books in libraries now that Bernard Gaynor is pushing back against this, and so also a colleague of mine, Angela Rojas, in South Australia, getting all these pornographic books that are under the label of education for children off the shelves. So now I'm going to read you this, Alex, and I don't know if you've heard this before or any of your viewers, but this is the work of Gary Dowsett, who is responsible for writing some of the content in schools, the sexualised content in schools. Now, who benefits, Alex, from children being sexualised?
Well, I think it's part of this broader agenda to normalise pedophilia, as you say, with terms like minor attracted people and hypersexualisation and just confusion. And again, I had this chat yesterday. Kids are malleable, and so it's so easy for them to feel like they don't fit in, or we all go through those phases or whatever. And if they're pushing you people in a certain direction, this is all psychology, which we know they're masters at.
Yeah, and it's the peer group pressure. And I'll just have a bit of a side issue. I got a report from a parent last year that two 11-year-old children, I'm going to read later on some content out of the Hunter Valley Grammar health module. It's quite disturbing, but got contacted by a parent. There was two 11-year-olds caught having sex in the school toilet at lunchtime, and their response to the principal was, well, you tell us and educate us that our sexual feelings are important and it's important to express them, so that's all we were doing. Now, that's probably a fair argument for those kids to...
One of my ex's nephews was caught in the Alveston High School, grade 7 or grade 8 or something, doing that. School toilets on the floor. He was caught in the middle of the act. Actually, I think he finally was caught right at the end of the act. And then they wondered why's he doing that? Well, he got it from somewhere, and I'm pretty damn sure it wasn't a fish and chip shop. They never picked that up from McDonald's. Well, I know he wouldn't have picked that up from home.
Make, but it's totally inappropriate having sex in the school toilets at lunchtime, because these kids have been revved up, hypersexualised with all this content. Now, Gary Dowsett's article, I'll get back to this. One of the paragraphs states, some mothers and some fathers will agree that children are sexual and generate sexual responses in their parents. Cuddling, breastfeeding, bathing together, playing, kissing and fondling kids are immensely pleasurable activities for them and for us. And it is not uncommon to feel sexually aroused by that closeness, that touch and that love. How different then is that gentle, tentative sexuality between parent and child from the love of a pedophile and his or her lover?
Yeah, you can see inside the minds of these people. They're not well. It's just the evil. Yeah.
Yeah, and these people are responsible for writing school curriculums for children. It is astounding. And I'll call up another one here. Another lecturer from La Trobe University, who is a current lecturer now. Now, Gary Dowsett retired as a lecturer in 2019, but La Trobe Uni, lo and behold, they went and made him an emeritus professor. So they can wheel Gary Dowsett out whenever they like, and what he speaks about they can't be held liable for. And he's still on a payroll too. There's another person here, I won't call him a gentleman, by the name of Steve Angelides. Steve Angelides is a pedophiles advocate as well too. In 2000, Steve Angelides was also part of the Safe Schools Coalition.
Now, I'm going to drop a name here. I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to, because it's not fair. My old grade 7 homeroom school teacher at Reese High School, Mrs. Moyer, ended up getting basically chased out of the school education system for trying to expose a pedophile at Reese High School back in the 80s, 90s. I can't remember which one it was because there was a few of them. I've got a funny feeling it was Mr. Herpish. Pretty sure it was Mr. Herpish. Yeah, I also remember Mr. Marsh, PE teacher. He used to come in and watch us all shower after PE and walk around and yell at us and carry on and get and have a shower, get your clothes off and have a shower. That was normal to us back then. But looking back on it, that's fucked. There you go, and I tell you, it caused a lot of bullies and kids getting picked on, that did. No, I think they fed off that shit, to be honest.
Writes the role safe schools out here in Victoria. Stephen Angelides wrote in a journal in 2013, The Uncanny Sexual Child. There is research to show that, as well as feeling a sense of power and control in sexual encounters with adults, children can frequently experience sexual pleasure. It is imperative that children's sexual desire and their sense of power and pleasure not only be recognised but also normalised. From La Trobe University. Now, when you're hearing people like Jacinta Allen and so forth talk about data and on backing all this nonsense up. They're getting their data from the Australian Research and Sex Health and Society. Their research sample sizes are about 200 to 300 people, mate, which they try to extrapolate out to the rest of society, and they're on a case study of 14 to 21-year-olds. So it's not credible data at all, and I wouldn't mind betting a survey of the same 14 to 21-year-olds all the time as well, mate. So it's an absolute cesspool, and you can see why they are trying to obviously hypersexualise our kids. Now, this goes back to Alfred Kinsey in the 40s. Alfred Kinsey was, and I'm sure you've heard this person's name before, he did a whole bunch of experiments, sexual experiments on infant orgasms. Help me understand, Alex, how you would gather data from an infant orgasm, and what would you be having to do to the infants to get this data?
Yeah, it is so crazy how so much of this is like try to be normalized under like science and psychology and study and whatever, like when it is just these absolute sickos, and somehow they feel like if they put on a white coat it makes it legitimate.
Yeah, correct, and then get funded by the World Health Organization and all the rest of it. Now, the World Health, a lot of the data that the World Health Organization goes off is data from Alfred Kinsey. Okay, so when you've got their booklet here, you can download it. All this information I'm talking about, people can research off the Leave Our Kids Alone website. I'll sure you'll put the links up for me, mate. That'd be great. You always do.
Yeah.
You're great at what you do, mate. I just seriously, just a side issue. I just can't thank you enough for what you're doing. It's been, myself, Rachel Bourne, and many other people from around the country. We felt like we've been beating our head against the brick wall on this, but the exposure you're giving this issue is fantastic, mate. So just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a great job.
Absolutely.
They've got a document, the Standards for Sexuality Education in Europe, and that's where they claim that on page 38 of that document on sexuality, it's enjoyment and pleasure when touching one's own body, early childhood masturbation, and that's from 0 to 4-year-olds. That's in a World Health Organization document. And there's other disturbing things in there as well. So I think Malcolm Roberts got up and spoke about this in Parliament a couple of years ago, and lo and behold, it fell on deaf ears. But, when you get a whole bunch of politicians up in Canberra who know about the speech or the talk and the information that Bill Heffernan was talking about at the Senate Estimates Committee that related to the Royal Commission.
Hey, I'm going to drop a banger on that.
I don't know if you've spoken to him.
Hey, Craig, I'm glad you mentioned that. Now, I would guess that their officers would record phone calls for coaching and training purposes, wouldn't they? I was talking to a lady in Malcolm Roberts' office on the phone about that very thing, and she told me that it was never substantiated, it wasn't a thing, and it was just 28 names scribbled on a piece of paper. Her words, not mine. Yeah. So I'm going to put that what I just said then, in the comments after this. To make sure that gets out there, because all listeners, it appears, with Mr. Roberts.
Politicians and ask them that direct question, they'll say, I don't know anything about that.
I haven't, but again, I don't really interface with many politicians. I've reached out to one or two that I think are like the good guys. But again, I think it's kind of coming out now anyway. But for people that read those titles, like you just read out, World Health Organization, this complete evil, and think...
Also, you want to talk to Liam in Malcolm Roberts' office. Just saying. I'm gonna whack the whammy on a whole bunch of people in this. So I'm hoping Craig gets it.
How can this be ever possible? I think once people now with the Epstein files and all this stuff coming out, it's legitimate that these people are, Satanists and pedophiles, and they're part of these secret societies. So do you want to maybe talk about some of the things you've learned just of that aspect of it and how they kind of get groomed or...
Yeah, and it's the peer group pressure, and I'll just have a bit of a side issue. I've spoken about this many times, it doesn't get any easier. One of the ways these sick people...
I don't know what you did. And I am happy to stand up in court and swear on a Bible on that.
Desensitise the children, because these children get taken from party to party to party, handed around like, pieces of meat. These poor innocent children have had their innocence ripped away from them. One of the ways they desensitise these kids is they catch stray dogs, they line the kids up, and they torture these dogs to death in front of the children to desensitise the children. One instance, one of the survivors told me one time it happened, they actually decapitated the dogs, chopped the dog's head off and started waving it around in front of the children after they tortured that dog to death. This is what you're dealing with, Alex. I mean, I could sit on here, so apologies if that's triggered or offended anyone, but this is where we're playing. This is what you're playing.
And I've heard similar stories about how they even make the kids kind of like kill these animals again, all building them up to the real sick stuff with humans to desensitise them. And again, this bestiality thing seems to be part of this Satanism. And we just saw New Zealand's Deputy Police Commissioner.
Don't worry. I know exactly what I'm playing with these rational Satanists, and it ain't good, and I know it's probably doing me some harm, but I've got to do some good. And, deal with the cops. You get in there, and they all stand around you like, and you can feel them like, like this is weird. And they're triggering you, trying to get you angry. You look angry, mate. You look angry. Like, no, mate, I'm just old. Angry? No, I'm not angry. Disappointed. Not angry. You wouldn't want to see me angry. I might be short. That's why you wouldn't want to see me angry. They feed off that shit somehow. They're Satanists.
You get done as a pedo and for bestiality. And again, it's some of these Aussie arrests I've been covering. Again, it's this bestiality element which ties into just this evil, satanic, these sick things that these people are into.
Yeah, correct. And they'll have sex in front of with the animals in front of the children as well too, to try and normalise that as well. These people are sick, and I know it's really hard for a lot of people out there to get their head around, because most people out there are good people. And they just want to live a life and not be bothered, and they can't fathom the depths of depravity and evilness that are out there, especially from our people that are trusted to govern us. And just on that, just to govern us. I mean, but with all love and respect, you better start getting your head around it. And what's only coming out now is just tip of the iceberg, as you know, Alex. It really is only tip of the iceberg stuff. So when the full depravity gets exposed, and more of this depravity gets exposed, it's going to rock people to their foundations. So we're going to need a lot of support going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think it is necessary. Everyone has to go through that process of, like any trauma or just radical, or if your entire belief system is shattered, it's like a breakup or a death in the family or whatever. You've got to go through that process of like denial and anger, and then a kind of people that have been speaking out about this for years. A lot of people and even the victims have processed this now, and it's time for healing and getting this knowledge out there, because knowledge is power. You can't fix a problem if people aren't aware of it or don't believe it's real, and that's kind of where we're at now, as you say, and everyone's at a different stage of that waking up journey.
Yeah, absolutely,
I've been waiting
mate.
forever.
Just look, a couple of so I hope I've answered that question pretty well. There was, another account.
I feel like I've been on the other side of that Rubicon for a long time. I paid the ferryman and I'm just waiting for you to come over. It's crazy.
I had Gippsland's rife for the Masonic element down there. There's a lot of unsavoury things that goes down there. So there was a report, once again, There was a barn in Omeo where the girls and the women were led in, form a circle on their knees to perform oral sex to the sick individuals that were there. One woman after a while refused, so one of the sick freaks knocked her front teeth out with a punch and then forced her to continue the act. These are the people we're dealing with. There was a group of police stations down in the southeast of Melbourne, 4 or 5 of them. That one 15-year-old girl in particular was taken to station to service the sergeants.
Yeah, it seems to be really common in the police back in the day, and obviously I think it's kind of, maybe not as prevalent now because of the awareness of this and people speaking out and stuff, but absolutely they're a key cog in all of this.
It's still prevalent now, mate. It's just more underground and more secretive, and they're getting really desperate with the child. I mean, there's 4 or 5 what they consider safe houses here in Melbourne where children are trafficked into, and the mothers as well too. And there's a terminology in their sick world called cows, where women are just impregnated to spit out these babies for satanic sacrifice. And a lot of the babies that are born won't even see past 1 or 2 months because they're used for sacrificial acts.
This was also in the Epstein files. There was a good video on YouTube about this the other day, because this is kind of one aspect of it that people aren't talking about, his obsession with genetics, cloning, breeding, and I think they were even referencing the women as egg people to harvest from and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's really sick stuff, but I'm just going to read you, this is how they go back to the kids issue in schools, mate. Did you want me to extrapolate on that a little bit more, or are you happy to flip over to this?
Up to you, mate. Yeah, if you're happy to keep going, that's fine, but I think that was a pretty good, people understand.
Oh, mate, we could basically on here for the rest of the day, brother, and it's just a brief overview to tie everything else together that you've been speaking about, and also people like myself, Rachel Vaughan, Fiona Barnett, and other Dale Holmes, Glenn Fisher, all these other people from around the country have been speaking.
Do you have any hope that, Malcolm Roberts or Senator Babbitt seems to be one that's spoken out a lot about this stuff? Is there any hope that's going to come from any of these politicians that are going to be bringing it up?
No. I spoke to Malcolm Roberts up in Canberra protests, okay? He got off the back of the truck. I said, g'day Malcolm. I said, mate, when are you going to mention and make some noise about the suppression orders around the Wood Royal Commission and what Bill Heffernan spoke? His exact words to me were, I don't know anything about it. That's what Malcolm Roberts were. Ralph Babbitt, I left a comment on his social media page a couple of years ago about the pedophile suppression orders and the Wood Royal Commission. Ralph's comment back was, there are no suppression orders. So, mate, we are not going to rely on politicians. It is going to have to be us to push back on this en masse. I mean, you just think about it yourself, Alex. Do you want to leave the safety of your children, or anyone out there, you want to leave the safety of your children moving forward in the hands of politicians? Really? Sorry.
I think we've kind of seen over the past couple of years with stuff like the cash ban, the power that the people do have. So when, myself, Martin North, John Adams, Robbie Barr, whatever, that when people get the message out and they get thousands of phone calls to these politicians demanding, I think that's what it's going to take. And we're already seeing people that can't walk down the street now, politicians and leaders or whatever. And that's kind of the point I think we need to get to.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Yeah, you're spot on. And people have to rise on this. And I've got a few walks coming up. I'll mention those towards the end. But I did want to mention this, mate. So, and this is not an isolated incident. This is from a workbook from Hunter Valley Grammar. Okay, it was a 195-page workbook where sexual health made up, diversity and sexual health made up 128 pages of a health workbook. The sexual health component made up a third of it. Now, when you're talking about things like sexual activities include intimate activities with someone else's body like kissing, sexual touching up, including groping, digital penetration, oral sex, anal sex, mutual masturbation, sexting, sending nude images, cyber sex. They claim things like sex isn't just intercourse from a penis into a vagina. Imagine that the penile vaginal intercourse is just one bit of the whole meal on your sex plate. Really disturbing terminology to use for year 10s. There's also oral sex, mutual masturbation, anal sex, deep kissing, hand jobs, penetrating with fingers, and so many more things, different toys and tools you can use, and so on. That was in a year 10 health workbook, and that is not an isolated incident. One of the disturbing things in that workbook, Alex, and you can see all this information on the Leave Our Kids Alone site, one of the disturbing bits of information is in that workbook there was a link to a website called Scarletine. It was a queer information website. Scarletine. Does that seem a strange name to call a website about queer sexual information? Yeah, it does, doesn't it? When you break that down, the word la is the in French language. Okay, so the in English is la in French. So when you break that down and place la for the, it's Scarletine. Pretty sick stuff. Now, children can log on from a workbook, from a link in a workbook, unbeknownst to parents, to this website where, and this is one example, a 35-year-old male from Leeds in the UK who had pronouns they, who was one of the volunteers, was organising forums, live forums, and forums where you could ask questions about masturbation and does it feel uncomfortable. Now, these are teenage people that log onto this site and being groomed by these predators, all from a link in a work school book. This is what's happening under our nose.
And the scar the teen, I've spoken about wordplay in Satanism, and we saw things like James Alefantis and what that means in French, child lover or whatever it is, and with Pizzagate. So, I mean, this is again like symbolism will be their downfall, as we say. And once we know the codes they use and how they go about this symbolism, structures of power, then this is how we undo all their systems.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is. It's just exposing it and breaking the matrix and breaking their spell. I mean, you want to look at the study of the English language as well too, ethnology. I'd advise people to start studying that and the power of words and the power you speak. Yeah, that's why it's called spelling, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
That's why cursive writing, strange name for writing, isn't it? Cursive.
Yes. Even just government, like govern to control men's mental minds. So that's what government's there, to control people's minds. And once you start to break down all these words, it's just, it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, mate. But
I know you've got your walks coming up as well this weekend. Yes. So I've got the Melbourne one on screen, but I believe you've got, Sydney and Adelaide too, or?
So we just locked in the Adelaide date. So the Melbourne one, guys, this is for people out there. It's this Sunday, 22nd of Feb, 11 a.m. at Princes Park in Royal Parade, Carlton. Okay, so we'll be walking around the track. Won't be going on any roads, and it's not a protest. It's a rally. We're asking people to bring their children around and walk. Okay, the speeches we will clearly keep in mind that there'll be children present, so we won't be talking about any of this content, but we'll still be able to get our point across in terms of what the situation is, but most importantly, what you can do. And going forward, what we'll be requiring, we don't request from politicians, we require, because they are our elected representatives and they're supposed to do what we want. So we'll be requiring and demanding from every one of our state and federal politicians, and there'll be a letter link template you can download from the Leave Our Kids Alone website. It's not up there now. We'll be requiring that you release all the information that's been suppressed about every bit of child abuse, from every child abuse inquiry and every Royal Commission into child abuse from the last 40 years. We want that released. That is our information for us to know, the public to know, not for you politicians that are protecting your pedophile mates to suppress. We are demanding that be released. Also, we'll be demanding that, and once that released, well, you have the fun and games there, and then charges need to be laid, Alex. Okay, charges and arrests need to be laid, and investigations need to happen, which is a bit hard when, you have a good percentage of the police forces involved, mate. So, that's a bit of a conundrum in itself. Also, we'll be demanding that all sexual content be taken out of school literature and school curriculums. School curriculums is no place for the content that I spoke about before, and they're also teaching this content at a lesser level in primary schools now as well too. When you're talking about a website called raisingchildren.net.au, who sent one of the daycare franchises in here in Victoria, sent a link home to all parents last year to let them know that the content from raisingchildren.net.au will be spoken about with your children. And they're talking about things like, naked role play. This is 0 to 3-year-olds, Alex. Naked role playing, touching and looking at the genitals of familiar children and familiar adults in the bath and toilet. 0 to 3 and 4 to 6. Not set up for the groomers much at all there, is it, mate?
No.
Familiar, looking at and touching the genitals of familiar children and or adults. This is what it states, and you can find that information on the Leave Our Kids Alone website as well.
Well, you saw that that mum, I got in touch with her as well in South Australia at a primary school where they were teaching bestiality, and again, it's just, that was pretty shocking for people at the time as well. And I got in touch with her, but she said she can't speak because she is suing them or something. But
she's suing the SA government. I've tried to, good on you, mate. I've been trying to reach out for the last year and a half, mate. So good effort, good on you for getting through. But she can't sue them. One of the things that was originally pointed at, spoken about, she can't speak about it because she is suing them. That's the SA government. So I think Headspace need to be sued as well too. Maybe it's just a strategy she's implementing. But also what was spoken about at the time was boy lover and girl lover, and wasn't reported at the time was incest was spoken about as well too.
Yes. Yeah.
And I did have contact with one of the family friends, and they are quite a close family where hugs and, affections are abundant. And after that, and the girl that was exposed to this has got 2 younger siblings, and her question to mum is, Mum, can I still hug whatever the 2 younger siblings' names were? Does that mean I want to have incest with them? Now, this is child abuse, mate. There's no other way you can paint this. No other way. And I've just seen an article earlier today on the mainstream. I've got to do a bit of research on that puberty blockers and gender affirming care is going to be allowed for toddlers now.
Yeah, this is all part of this satanic inversion. And again, under the guise of acceptance, and obviously we want acceptance and equality, and people are free to do what they do, as you say, once they're adults. But yeah, this suicidal empathy of people's attitudes that they've been programmed to, you're not allowed to say that, or, we've got to let that go, and whatever. Like, you have to realise we're against evil.
Yeah, you're 100% correct, Alex, as usual, mate. And that taboo subject that we can't talk about. I mean,
Well, guys, I've just been on the phone to Craig, and his connection has been kicked offline completely. So make of that what you will. But we're about to wrap up anyway. I will put the links to follow all Craig's work down below. All those marches that are this weekend, and obviously he's doing amazing work. So support him across all his socials too. Share this video around, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll talk to you again soon. Cheers.
Hey guys, bit of a worry, isn't it? I'm just filling out my form to take into the police station. Request for disclosure of information. See what they make of that. I've written my name properly. Yeah, I don't do print. Actually, I don't know. Talking about cursive, I've been writing court cursive since grade 3. My print's it's not, it's illegible. I'm grown up now. I write like a grown up does. There's a bit of worry in it. Think about it. I need to get on to Craig because I've got some lovely information for Craig. I even know where. I know what's going on up at Conzi's club. I know where some of the tunnels are too. Oh yeah, Bernie's got tunnels.